Thus said Ra, the Lord of all, Lord of the utmost limits, after he had come into being. He said, I am the one who came into being as Keper, he who comes into being and brings into being. When I came into being, being itself came into being. All beings came into being after I came into being. Many were the beings that came forth from the commands of my mouth. Heaven had not yet come into being, nor had earth come into being, nor had the ground been created, or the things which creep and crawl upon it. I raised up beings in the primordial waters as inert things. I found no place on which to stand. I formed it from the desire in my heart. I laid the foundation through Ma'at. I created forms of every kind. Many were the forms which issued forth from the commands of my mouth. Not yet had I established Shu, the power and principle of light and air, nor sent forth Tefnut, the power and principle of moisture. There existed no one who acted together with me. I conceived it in my own heart, and there came into being a vast number of forms of divine beings, as forms of offspring and forms of their offspring from then. I'm going to stop right there for a second, because what does that establish to you? I'm going to use the Shm Em Htp teaching method now at this point. You know, the Greeks, they steal these methods, and so they call it the Aristotelian method of teaching, when you teach by asking your students questions instead of just giving them the answer. Is that what they call it? The Aristotelian method? Oh, I'm sorry. The aristocratic method, but they got that from the Nile Valley. We should really call it the Shm Em Htp. The Shm Em Htpian method. So what is this revealing to you? What is this paragraph? What is this passage revealing? What do you see? What's coming out in regard to what we're saying here about the nature of ancient Kemetic theology? I'm hoping that you should see here that it's monotheism. One creator is part of their teaching. You know, if you ever watched the movie The Prince of Egypt, if you ever watched that Prince of Egypt with your children, I mean, that movie in and of itself will put forth the idea that the Egyptians were polytheistic. All right? And really polytheistic, as I said, this is a Western term that they really ascribe to all cultures who have spiritual traditions that they can't really comprehend. And from their perspective, they comprehend them as separate forces of nature, separate forces of a universe that are operating in and of their own realm, not connected to the supreme one that created them, etc., etc. So they would refer to these cultures as polytheistic. What I usually tell my classes is that a better term, a more accurate term to speak of when talking about African culture and Kemetic or Kemite culture would be the term mono-pantheism. I might have created that term. I don't know. This might be an original. I don't know. But it kind of makes sense when you look at what the ideas were that were coming out of the culture. Monopantheism. Pan, of course, means all as one. All right, and so I say monopantheism because there's the belief in the supreme creator of the universe. But it says here in the last part of that passage that there came into being a vast number of forms of divine beings and forms of offspring and forms of their offspring from them. So once the supreme creator, Ra, created the heavens and the earth, which were divine beings in and of themselves. When he says, I created the heaven, he's talking about I created Nut. Nut is the goddess of the heaven. I created the earth. He's saying, I created Jeb. Jeb is the god, or the masculine force, the power of the earth. All right? And so it's a monopantheism because, yes, there is a recognition that there are entities that reside and define and rule over certain aspects of nature, or every aspect of nature, and every aspect of nature was given a divine entity to identify that particular aspect by. It's really a scientific teaching that merges with theology. It's really a theological science. It's how people were taught science and taught the essence of spirit that exists within all universal matter. Ra says, I came forth from among the plants which I created, and I created all things which creep and crawl, and all that exists among them. Okay? Again, it's a monotheistic creator that's creating all creation. Then he says, then by the power and principle of light and air, and the power and principle of moisture, heaven and earth were brought into being. Alright? We can name those, but we won't. And by earth and heaven, Osiris, Horus, Seth, Isis, and Nephthys were brought into being from the womb, one after another, and they gave birth to the multitudes in the land. Alright, so that's really where I want to talk about tonight, and that's where I'm going to end tonight after I talk about this cosmology, this theology. And it says here that essentially Amen-Ra is the Lord of universal creator, and through those elements that he created, eventually there were humans that were created to descend from the heavens. Where in the heavens were they to descend from? They would actually descend from, according to this cosmology, this theology, they would descend from the star that is known as Sirius, not Sirius A, not Sirius C, but the star that they call Sirius B. That if you look at the cosmos on a clear night, even in the winter sky tonight, if the sky was clear, we could look up into the sky in this part of the earth and see Orion's belt. Orion's belt are those three almost in a row stars. All right, but Orion's belt, what is so important about Orion's belt is not necessarily Orion's belt itself, but what those stars point to. The stars point to the stars A, B, and C of Sirius. But when you look at that star Sirius, all you can see is one star. But in truth, in reality, there are three stars there. But you can't see the three stars with the human eye. All right, but the people of Kemetic, they were aware that there were three stars there. And just to tail off on this for a second, that when we go to Mali in West Africa, amongst the people that are known as the Dogon of Mali, West Africa, even to this day, I think about 100 years ago, there were some anthropologists and archaeologists that went to study with the Dogon, and they had heard about the Dogon's complex cosmology, and that the Dogon told these anthropologists about a star that they used to do their agricultural works and to create their calendars based upon. And they referred to the star as Patolo. They called the star Patolo, but they identified the star as the same as Sirius B. So these anthropologists, these French anthropologists, they didn't really believe that these poverty-stricken people who looked like, they could barely build a house, much less know where things are in the universe that the eye can't see. They didn't believe them until they created a telescope. And they put the telescope, they pointed the telescope at that star, and lo and behold, they saw three stars: Sirius A, Sirius B, Sirius C. With the telescope, but the Africans, the Dogon, as well as the people of Kemetic, they were conscious of that star without the telescope. All right, and the reason that star was so important to those two cultures was because they said that all that you see, all the matter that you see in the universe was actually born from that star Sirius B. And that, they talk about you might have heard about the Akashic records and the thoughts of humanity and the souls of humanity, that all that is considered virtuous and good and ever living it is said, eventually returns to that particular galaxy, that particular star system, Sirius B. And so it is from this star system, Sirius B.